Welcome everyone to our last video tutorial for this series. I noticed a critical mistake in this and that I didn't use what's called a ground plane. So let's go ahead and change our routings to include a large copper pour that fills the whole board for our ground. So I'm going to click unroute, unroute all, and click yes to get rid of all my traces. I'm then going to go to the polygon pour tool, enter the signal ground, and change to bottom is what we want this on. We can leave all this as is for now. And I'm just going to draw my rectangle on my board and click on my beginning spot. And there you see we have a big blue square now, a rectangle, that is our pour. I'm going to select it, and we're going to change a few options. I'm going to make my isolate 10 mil, so just add a little bit of distance around it. Width doesn't really matter. Thermal width I want to change to 16 mil. You can see what that does. It makes these connections a little bit more beefy. We don't want a full connection here, something like that, because it makes it really hard to solder. So we use thermals that just make it a little bit easier to solder, but we want them to be a little beefy. All right, and there is our copper pour. So let's go back to our top layer and go to auto router and continue and start. And this will connect all of our other connections. Now, we should use this top router. It's usually the best one, but mine is taking a while to run. So I'm going to go down and select number 5, which has 0 vias and is 100% complete, and click end job. And there we go, we have all of our connections. All right, so let's push this to be a 3D model. And you can see I have this issue in that my Pico still isn't showing up. So I figured out what that was. In my schematic, I have the wrong Pico selected. So in my libraries, I have a few Raspberry Pi Picos here. I'm pretty sure this one is the one that has the proper model. No. Nope. There we go. So I can just delete this and put a new one in place. And if I line up my connections, it'll work fine. Go back to my PCB. That didn't mean this changed, but I can middle click to put it on the back and put it in place. And because I put it in the same place, everything reconnected. All right, let's push this to 3D. And wait a second. Oh, that's not good. All right, I'm going to close that. Push to 3D. Let's actually save this first. Oh, my PCB is out of date. All right, so whenever we get this yellow new version of this document exists, it's because I was making changes and I came back to it, but I can save as new. I need to do that to this one too. So if you go back in a version history, so if I click here and I have my versions, I can go back to an old version and then file save as latest and kind of push out the new version that might have a mistake and go back to the old version. All right, let's push to 3D now. And there we go. We have our boards. So this is what our actual PCB looks like roughly. And so I'm going to go ahead and go to File, Save As, and name this board. And then we can design an enclosure for it. So if I go to File, New Design, we can drag this board into it. Once it loads, drag the board into it, and we have that model right here. All right, I'm going to create a new component and label this like top. I'm going to create another new component and label it bottom. So we have the bottom of our case and the top of our case. I want to be on bottom. Now I can create a sketch. Now I need to offset it from this plane a little bit so that there's room for the Pico to sit. So I'm going to go to offset plane, click on here, and just put like 0.1 inches should be enough. Maybe a little more. So I'm going to go down here and say like 0.125. Yeah, it looks good. And then I can create a sketch on that work plane. I can project my geometry. So I can just project the whole board and then draw a rectangle. Press the button by accident. And dimension it off the rectangle to be like 0.05 inches to give it some clearance. And I want to, 0.05 might change, so I'm going to select the same dimension each time to make sure if I need to change something, say that's a little bit too tight, I can just go change one and I'll change all of them. All right, then I'm going to offset this wall. I'm going to do negative 0.05, and then I can extrude that to be my enclosure. And you can make it the exact distance that you want. And from there, you can design your own enclosure.